So it's like, it makes you realize that it really is who you hire. Doesn't matter how much you spend. Sometimes you can actually find really talented people for less money, but it's just who you hire and put them in the right position. And yeah, it is sad, but that's part of business, is to lose money and learn those lessons along the way.
This is Brandon Turner, and you are listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
Welcome to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Are you trying to get out of debt, invest, or just not sure where to start? Then this is the place for you. We discuss different ways to get out of the rat race and build your wealth. Join us on this wild ride to financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Cavaggioni, and today's guest is Caleb Boxx. So Caleb, super excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, I want to start this off the same way I start every podcast episode. This one's going to be a little bit different though, right? Because we're talking about YouTube automation. So we're talking about the business side of things when it comes to that. Right. Not so much some of the other things that I've had on here with real estate and crypto and day trading and other things like that. So I'm really interested in talking about this. So I want to know, and my listeners want to know about you. So who is Caleb Boxx? Please share your story with us.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little bit more of a suburb, small town outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I grew up more of a middle class home. And for me, I've always been into business and YouTube. I always started small side hustles, even when I was 11 years old, just to afford video game money. I've always been more entrepreneurial driven. And then over time, I started to learn about YouTube and making video making, and it became a passion of mine. As time progressed, it turned into an actual business when I started to meet other successful YouTubers, and they became my mentors. And I got around people like Mr. Beast, who is now like the biggest YouTuber. I think he has like over 110 million subscribers. So I had a mastermind of like 20 of us YouTubers, and he was in there. So in 2016, I learned a lot during that process, and that really leveraged me forward into the business world of YouTube. And so a lot of my YouTube friends, they went more the personal brand route. So they would show their face on camera, that kind of thing. At the time, I was 16 years old going through puberty, and no one would want to hear a puberty kid to watch a video about whatever, right? And so I had to get smart. And one idea I had was to actually hire a friend of mine and give him a percentage of my channel to help create the content for me, because his voice wasn't so bad compared to mine. And so we started to work together and started to build that out. And that became super successful for me. And it got to a point where I didn't even have to do the work anymore. And I was just more a consultant of my own YouTube channel. And then I got a huge percentage of it all. When I realized I could literally outsource the whole production to somebody else and they would be okay with it, I was like, okay, how could I get higher quality production done? That's when I stumbled upon freelance websites like Upwork.com, Fiverr.com, those freelance websites. And I started to hire script writers, narrators, video editors, et cetera, to create faceless video content for me, just for a good 70 to $100 a video and everything. And then that created the cash flow per month that I could take for myself. And then that became a business in itself. And then more and more friends wanted to learn how I did it, started to help them. And then eventually I went public and started doing consulting as well as growing my own channels like this.
Yeah, dude, that is awesome. I know I've seen a couple of your videos in the past talking about YouTube automation and how to do it. It's awesome to know like that process that you went through to get there. And then to top it off, you were in a mastermind group with Mr. Beast. That's pretty dope, man. Not a lot of people could say that we're in something with him or got to hang out with him. That's pretty cool, man. Now, for your actual YouTube automation services, what would you say is like your specialty?
Yeah, so pretty much, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's a gut instinct, and I've tried to break it down. I think I've done a good job of it for clients, but I really break down like how it's like when you look at a thumbnail, there's certain patterns of behavior. It's a lot of psychology is really what it comes down to with YouTube, and that's just marketing. YouTube essentially is marketing. And so I've pretty much broken down certain formulas and the way I process things, and I help coach and mentor other people who are building these type of YouTube channels to create cash flow. And so, yeah, that's like more the mentorship style. And then, and when you're talking about services of what I have and everything, we have, and like the people I started with, some of them are now coaches in my mentorship program. So we have a collective of about 1.2 billion collective views that are 4 coaches in my mentorship program have, always coaching and getting in calls with clients. So yeah, that's what we've done to help them to create more side income.
1.2 billion, that's it? No, I'm kidding. That's awesome, man. Okay. Yeah. So now you mentioned earlier that you were outsourcing a lot of that work when you first started with Upwork and Fiverr. And I want to point that out because I absolutely love that. I do that myself with this podcast, actually. I outsource the actual editing. I have a VA that I found on Upwork that does pretty much everything. She is amazing. As a matter of fact, I took her off Upwork and pay her a salary now because she's just so good. And I find so much like tremendous value in outsourcing. And I feel like right now at this point in my life, I can't live without outsourcing certain things because basically I'm buying your time back. And when you could buy your time back, there's so much other things you can do with that time. So would you say that your service is something similar to that you're helping people have a business in a box and they get to get that time back? So they're not out there having to put in all that work to get the scripts, create the video, get the B-roll, put everything together, edit it. So what would you say, like the whole, let's say soup to nuts from start to finish, if somebody was to check out what you guys are doing, what does that look like? Somebody signs up for your YouTube automation services. What does that look like?
Yeah, it depends on the phase that they're in. For us, the way we have it set up is we can take on anyone if they want to do a personal brand or they want to do an automation. We help with just general YouTube consulting if they need to.
Nice.
But there's two types of people, right? There's people who's just starting out when it comes down to financials. They don't have a lot of money. We recommend a minimum of $300 to $500 a month for videos, right? To pay for someone else to do it. If they don't have that, you could always do certain elements yourself. For example, we have some clients who actually do the editing of the videos themselves. So that cut the cost down so they can outsource maybe the writing and the narration, right? So it just depends on where you are on that space. But either way, people who join our program will mentor you, will show you more a blueprint for you that can help you based on where you are currently. Let's just say you do have the financing, you have the $500 or so a month that you can spend on video production. What it is like once you join through us, we have weekly Q&As. So we have the 4 weekly Q&As. Each coach is an expert of each different category, right? One is an expert of hiring the right freelancers. One is an expert of thumbnails and titles, right? So we have different coaches throughout. And then we also have mentor, like private one-on-one calls that we do with people to help with them strategy. The way when it comes down to the actual individual of what they would need to do is we always recommend first, you want to find the right niche. So finding the right niche, in our program, we have a list of over hundreds of niches that they can look at. So other competitor channels that are currently being successful, et cetera. So they can get some inspiration that way. But also, we always recommend go into a niche that you currently love. It's very hard to become an expert of something that you hate, right? And if you're going to do NBA videos, and let's just say you hate NBA, you don't like watching that type of sport, why would you make the videos? Or not even hate, but just mediocre like. And so we always recommend you have to like it. You have to enjoy it, because the best way to create the most viral, engaging video ideas is if you truly are a fan. You will know what it's like to be in the shoes of the viewer that you're trying to attract to your audience, to your channel. And so ultimately, that's what we start there, is we guide the person on what niche to select based on their interest, but also what makes the most views / money, right? Views equals money on YouTube. And people think it's subscribers. Doesn't matter if you have 100K subscribers. If you only have 10 views, you don't make any money off of that, right? So views do matter more than subscribers. Once we figure out your niche, that's when we talk about, okay, now we have to talk about coming up with video ideas and outsourcing it to a team, right? You come up with video ideas. We have different formulas for that. But after you create the video idea, you then go on Upwork.com, Fiverr. There's a few other websites out there, and you will try to find talented script writers. You start with that. You find a writer. They can write a 1,000 word script, which comes out to about 5 to 6 minutes long, right? We usually recommend doing shorter length at first, because like any business, you don't want to go full force into it just yet. If you do longer videos, it costs more money. So doing shorter allows you to get better. Your first few videos are going to suck. So you might as well suck on a cheaper budget than more expensive down the drain, right? So we start with that and everything. Then you have to hire a narrator. Narrators are actually more important than people realize. I've seen a lot of clients where their narrator sounds like a corporate commercial, right? And so we're like, you should probably find someone who sounds more genuine, more real, because no one wants to listen to a corporate commercial guy doing the narration about NBA, let's say, right? And so narration is what you want to find next. And then you want to find an editor. And the editor will go ahead and get different footage. So stock footage online, YouTube clips, whatever, using the fair use law to ensure that it's edited. So it's not directly taking someone else's footage with no edits, because that's illegal, but doing the fair use law to ensure it's actually edited appropriately. And then you overlay that narration voice file, or like MP3 file over it. And now you have a commentary video. So that's kind of the process that goes through it. And then you could just, it's rinse and repeat over time. And now what I always try to explain to people is not get rich quick. It's not something, I think there's a lot of people that has misconstrued. They hear the word YouTube automation and they think that it will only take them 30 minutes a week. No, the initial stages, I sometimes see clients take about 2 hours a day initially. Then after 2 hours a day, after about maybe 3 months or so, that's when things start to gain a little bit more momentum. And then that's when it can drop down to maybe 4, maybe 6 hours or so a week. But the initial stages are very important, right? And so it does take some time. The other factor of YouTube that people have to remember is nothing goes viral. Like, it doesn't go viral after a certain amount of videos. So let's say it's 10 videos. There's no formula where it says after X many videos, you'll go viral. There's some channels that take longer than others. There's some that's shorter than others. We have some clients that took off in 3 months and made 10,000 a month. Awesome. But there's others that took over 8 months and sometimes even more than that. Right? And so it just really varies, because a lot of it is based on trends too. So like an example being, if you get a video out with the right timing, let's say a news event broke in the NBA, something about LeBron James just broke. Everyone's talking about LeBron James. If you're in the NBA niche, the perfect timing is get a video about that event. When you get it out at the right time, you will get views. But if you miss it too long, let's say it took you a month to talk about the event, people moved on. So there's some factors that goes into it.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's fair, man. That is a lot of great information in just a few minutes. So I definitely appreciate that. I was sitting here jotting down some notes as you were going. So a couple things, right? It takes time, right? It's not get rich quick. Just like most of the people that I bring on here that talk about real estate, it's the same thing. It's not a get rich quick thing, right? And you got to put the money in up front. You got to make it happen, right? You got to spend money to make money. I know that's a cliche thing, but it's true. Okay. And then trends and timing, right? Like again, I find myself sometimes on social media, especially like on TikTok or Instagram, where I'll go to post like a reel or a TikTok on something that's like a trend, but I waited too long. And it's like, oh, how come my video is not getting as many views as all the other ones that did this, but mine looks cooler? What's going on? Well, I shouldn't have waited 15 days after it started, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely huge. The timing thing, I think, is a big thing. Okay. So Caleb, as you're doing this and you're helping other people out, like I know like back when you started your initial store, you said back in 2016 when you were starting this out, and then you had some friends that were interested and you started putting this together and helping your friends, and it grew into what it is today. I want to know, why do you do what you do?
Yeah, the short answer is there's two ways I look at it, right? There's obviously a financial incentive because it is diversifying your income streams. For me, I don't want to just have YouTube channels. It's good to have multiple income streams, especially when you have a bunch of people that you're supporting. For me, there's two whys. The employees is huge. So I have great team members around me and people around me. If the consulting obviously doesn't make money, they can't feed their family, right? Because they have different roles in it. The second thing is the impact of the actual clients. Seeing someone who join us and let's say they had $10,000 or so in their bank account. They join us, they follow our strategies, everything. They work really hard and they finally get off the ground and get a lot of financials coming in, 5,000 or so a month. That's a huge change to their life. You know, an extra stream of $5,000, but not just that, but also skill sets. I always tell clients like, look, because there's some clients that give up after 3 to 6 months, but I'm like, look, at the end of the day, even if this didn't work out for you, you're going to develop skill sets and learn so much that can move on to the next thing. So if you decide to move to another job or whatever, and the person that, you know, let's say you're the business owner of the job that you work for, the employer, they say, hey, we really need help hiring some people online to help do some work. Well, guess what? We just taught you how to hire freelancers and manage them, right? So there's more to it. And so seeing the impact we have, not only when people are successful in the program or YouTube automation, outside, we've seen it help a lot of people and develop skills that helps their business. So yeah, I think it's just the impact as well really does fire you up and keep you going.
Yeah, no, I love that. The very first thing you started off with saying diversifying your income, right? So yes, you can make a whole bunch of money on YouTube and you could do that all day as Caleb Boxx, right? You got your YouTube channels that are bringing in money. Something can happen and YouTube could say, hey, we're shutting down monetization. And now what happens? That stream of income is gone, right? So you're creating another business, showing people these skill sets on how to do that as well. The consulting and everything, like a couple different businesses all in a box, but at the same time, it's diverse. Like you said, there's a couple different things. It is very important to have several streams of income. Like a lot of people get sucked into, they get a high paying job and they get these golden handcuffs and they're like, oh, I got to just focus on this because my job pays the bills. But at the same time, your employer can lay you off like that and you have nothing. So it is important to have other streams of income. I like to do that through investing and real estate. I'm pretty interested in YouTube now, but I have a YouTube channel and it's okay and it's monetized right now, but it's not really doing much. This is just something else that's another like drop in the bucket that you can, or it's another bucket that you can have that you could start filling up as you have these different buckets of finances and trying to figure out what you're trying to do for yourself.
Yeah. And also people forget. So even if you're looking at it from an ad revenue standpoint, right? Like the ads that, and this is probably something we should clarify with YouTube, right? One of the easiest ways to earn money off of it is the ads played at the very beginning of your video throughout the video that automatically YouTube embeds on it, right?
Right.
That's just one income stream that YouTube provides for you off of these channels. I have a friend that actually does this business model. He's more in the entrepreneur niche. He decided to do a clothing line, his own clothing line off of Shopify. He did that, and he made over 60,000 in one single day, $60,000 in a single day of just sales from the loyal diehard audience he has on his YouTube channel. So even outside of ad revenue, there's so many income streams you can attach to your YouTube channel, because as an audience, as long as they vibe well with you, they love you and they trust you, they'll jump into anything you really want to promote. So I think that's another way that you can look at it. It doesn't just have to be a completely different business. You can diversify within the YouTube channel itself too.
Yeah, 100%. People love merch, right? Any way that they can to support their favorite creators and represent that they're part of that audience. I know Mr. Beast does that. He's got everything. He's even got chocolate bars now. And another popular person I follow on TikTok that does food reviews, he's going to review Mr. Beast's chocolate bars. So I thought that was pretty cool. They were just talking to each other on TikTok, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty neat. And just when you see interactions like that, it brings you back to, especially some of those bigger creators, it brings you back to the same level as saying, you know what, they're human too. They're people as well. And it's refreshing when you get to see stuff like that happen. That's awesome, man. Okay. So when it comes to you and your business model and how you do everything, I know that there's a lot of things you have to keep track of and payments and all of that. So are there any specific like CRM systems or tools that you and your team utilize that you think is just great for any business? Attention, fellow real estate investors. I know you're tired of ineffective marketing strategies that leave your lead generation feeling like a bust. Well, I've got a great solution for you. I've teamed up with Ballpoint Marketing to bring you a fresh approach to growing your business. With their handwritten direct mail marketing, your business will stand out from the crowd. Their amazing writing machines will craft personalized messages for each of your potential clients, making a lasting impression and increasing the likelihood of them responding to your message. They even make pen smudge marks to add to the authenticity. And for those of you that are driving for dollars, one of their most popular offers are handwritten door hangers. Placed directly on the front door, these door hangers show a potential seller how serious you are. With Ballpoint Marketing, you can trust their marketing strategy will be both effective and unique, just like your real estate business. Use my coupon code ABGJOE for an exclusive discount. Don't miss out on this opportunity to grow your real estate business and generate leads. Click the link in my bio for more. Hey everyone, Mike with Average Joe Finances. The Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, aka RubeCon, is on for 2023. It'll be May 4th through the 6th in Phoenix, Arizona at the Sheraton downtown. I'll be speaking again this year and I want to see you there. This year, I'm doing 2 speaking events, one about growing your investor network through podcasting, and the other is about investing while in the military. We have some great speakers lined up, so you don't want to miss this conference. Visit averagejoefinances.com/RubeCon, REWBCON, or the link in the notes below and use promo code Mike for discounted tickets. See you there.
Let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, so it depends on the level of the business. I would say on the kind of beginner level, Trello is a lot easier and just very simple to manage like
I was using Trello for a while, man.
Yeah.
I actually just pulled off of that and I started using Asana now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Once you start getting more advanced, I personally use ClickUp now, but once you get really advanced and there's a lot of projects going on, that's when ClickUp is good. But I definitely miss the Trello days because Trello was so easy. But once you end up on scale, it's a little bit harder to start using a bunch of Trello boards.
It's kind of fun too. Like this, especially like on smaller projects. I mean, like for my podcast editing, like me and my team, I would just put all the stuff on there. Everything was automated. It was all set to pull files from my Google Drive. And it was just so easy and simplified. And Asana's kind of the same way too, which I like that. I put the projects up and I link everything together. And then my team just takes it and runs with it. I just record content now, upload it, and I'm done at that point. And I think that's just pretty amazing. So I love the outsourcing side of things. I think that's fantastic. And I love that you do that as well. And that's how you started when you came up with this idea of this YouTube automation. It just started with some friends and learning to outsource properly and hiring the right people. I think that's the other key thing too, is having the right people in the right place. You even mentioned earlier how some of the folks that you have on your team, like they are specific to certain like topics or niches in your company, right? You have a person that just focuses on thumbnails, right? You have a person that just focuses on narration, video scripts, and then you have another person that just focuses on video editing. And that's important because now when you have a subject matter expert, when they're coaching somebody, they can kind of give them everything in that particular niche versus being a jack of all trade and master of none, right? So I think that's important, is how you built your team out. And that probably is a big testament to the success that you have right now. Would you say so?
Yeah, the whole game is who you know and who you hire. I've tried an example being recently, like we decided to test a different model because I'm always trying to be one chapter ahead of my students so I can help them, right? That's my role, is to make the mistakes so they don't have to. And recently we decided to we have a physical office. We decided to hire in-person people to help create these channels. We're like, let's just see what happens instead of just being a full freelance operation. Let's see what happens if we bring in-house people. Where we messed up is we brought in people who were just off the road, right? They didn't have any experience. We tried to train them all the way up. I made them go through my master class and course and everything, but they weren't energetic because they had a salary. They had a small percentage of the channels, but they weren't super incentivized because they had a consistent paycheck to live on. And also they just never really actually loved YouTube. They just wanted a job that sounds fun. And so we ended up hiring them. We gave it 6 months. I gave it a lot of time, a lot of test trials, going back and forth with them. And we decided to hire an in-person narrator and everything with them. We decided to test out face talent, right, with him. What ended up happening is we uploaded the videos, and then long story short, we went $100,000. We spent $100,000 on it. The channel made about $100, right? And I was like, wow, like we're at a point where I made $100. I spent $100,000. This sucks, right? And I was like, all right, I talked to like one of the managers. It's like, all right, we're going to have to let these people go and we're going to have to go back to basics. So we let them go. We're like, all right, let's go back to basics. Let's hire just freelancers and let's go back to what we know. So we did that. Sure enough, after 3 videos of changing it back around, we got a viral video and we became profitable. So it's like, it makes you realize that it really is who you hire. Doesn't matter how much you spend. Sometimes you can actually find really talented people for less money, but it's just who you hire and put them in the right position. And yeah, it is sad, but that's part of business, is to lose money and learn those lessons along the way.
Well, yeah, that's one of the biggest things. I even say this quite often when it comes to real estate investing itself, is when you make a mistake in real estate investing, you pay, and sometimes you pay pretty dearly. But at the same time, don't look at that as a monetary loss, but look at it as a paid education, right? You got to learn something valuable that you're not going to do that again, especially if you lost enough money. You're going to be like, okay, I'm going to learn this topic a little bit better to make sure this does not happen again. I know that's happened to me a couple times. I know many other investors that it's happened to. It's these mistakes that you wind up getting a master's degree on specific topics, right? And you almost pay the same price for what a master's degree would cost if you were paying out of pocket. So that's for sure, man. All right, Caleb, what would you say for you, because you've put this whole thing together, you've got this really good system put in place, what would you say is your superpower?
I think I'm good at vision. I think I have a superpower and a weakness that's all in one, right? Because I'm more of a visionary and creative guy, I'm bad at finishing projects, but I'm very good at creating the best idea of products that can actually be executed. Like I'm good at creating the idea, breaking down a blueprint and be like, all right, we can do this, running the numbers. Like I'm very nerdy like that. I can do that. My problem is once I come up with it, I send it to my team and they're really good at executing it, which goes back to this is why you need to have great people. They're going to execute it. The problem is I don't know how to slow down on the ideas to let them have a little bit more time to execute and then move on to the next. So it's like a superpower and a weakness in one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Now, is there anything specific that you use when it comes to generating leads for your business? Like how do you find your ideal clientele?
Yeah, a lot of it is Instagram, but we're also did YouTube, and YouTube is surprising because you don't need that many views to get leads from YouTube. Unlike Instagram, with Instagram, you probably need a lot more mass of an audience to reach. And I call Instagram, it's like they barely know you. It's like touching, like they see you once in a while. They don't have a deep, loyal connection to you. They might see 60 seconds of your content here and there with a reel. But with YouTube, the subscriber from a YouTube channel, it's just more loyal. They're willing to watch you for 10 minutes. So from our YouTube channel, we get some leads and everything as well. And we don't even get that many views on my personal channel that I have on my face and everything because I don't upload that much that one. But we get a lot of consistent leads. I have videos I posted 2 years ago that still get me leads over and over again. It's those two different sources, but definitely YouTube is the easiest when it comes down to like long-term side, but it's the hardest when it comes down to making the content. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It's one of the things about like evergreen content like that is just how it can keep giving, especially for those, you see it all the time when you have a lot of highly followed and highly watched creators. Well, every now and then they'll have that moment of transparency where they're like, hey, look, I've got this video from 2 years ago that's still making me an extra $40 a month. And this is from 2 years ago, guys. I see that all the time. A lot of the people that I follow, especially in the financial niche and real estate, right? It's amazing to see that some content that you can create that's just sitting there can still pay you years down the road. It doesn't have to be this constant. Now, obviously, source of income you're relying on, you're going to have to keep putting content out to make sure that you have that revenue coming in, right? But the fact that you can have this video that's just been sitting there for a while and all of a sudden a bunch of people started watching it, like a spike in views, and then the algorithm starts feeding it back out to the audiences again and start recommending it because a couple more people liked it and shared it with their friends or whatever. It's just an awesome way to look at it and just have
it's also
piece,
search based. It's search based. That's
a
why
piece
I like
that's
YouTube.
still coming in.
YouTube is like the second Google. And I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm going to YouTube it, most likely, because most people nowadays are visual more than reading. And so I'm going to YouTube it. That's the culture today. If you can find a way to get on the first page or even sometimes second page of search results of YouTube for that keyword or phrase, if you're selling a product around that, you get instant customers for a long time, assuming you maintain that positions. Yeah, it's out of any platform. Instagram, I don't go to Instagram and I don't search how to fix my toilet. Like, I don't do that. Right. So I think out of anything, Google and YouTube is the best way to get those type of people.
Yeah, so I do it a little bit differently. I will Google it and then I'll click the first YouTube video that shows up on Google. So, because, usually I'll Google it and sometimes there's videos right there, but I like to click the videos and then it'll show like a whole bunch of different YouTube videos and stuff. Yeah, usually I'm a very visual person. So I like to kind of see, listen, and just put it all together versus just reading instructions and, ripping my hair out, even though I don't have any. But yeah, okay, cool, man. All right.
I mean, you got some hair right here, man.
Yeah, so that's the only reason why I'm able to pull off not having any up here is because I can grow this now that I'm no longer in the Navy. Hey man, so I want to go ahead and transition this into something that I call the final round. It's where I'm going to fire off some questions at you. It's the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on the show, but they're a little bit more hard hitting and see where Caleb's at when he's put a little bit under pressure. But yeah, and also it might give us some good golden nuggets out of these last couple questions. So if you're ready to go, we'll get started.
Sure.
All right, here we go. So the first one, it's a big one. It's a doozy. But what's the biggest mistake you've ever made in business?
It goes back to people, trusting the wrong people, but also it comes down to me being the wrong person, like not hiring the right person and also holding them accountable. So it's like 1 and 2. So it goes back to me. I think just people is so important. And it's tough sometimes also because you don't know 100% how someone is until you get in business with them too. So yeah, I've had some bad hires. I've had some bad partnerships. So yeah, I think that'll probably be one of the bigger ones.
Okay, yeah, that's fair, man. And that's just brutally transparent. It's one of those things that sometimes you have to just really reflect on the things that you've done in the past that can sometimes be painful. And I like that you're transparent about that, man, because sometimes a lot of people avoid this question like the plague. All right, man. So the next question kind of ties into this one. And it's, what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started?
I don't want to give the same answer I've already have. So that's why I have to process it because a lot of it is really just people. That's my whole life. That's my whole business. When you really think about it, the entire art of running, if you're a CEO, the entire art of running a business is your people. That's the game,
100%.
right? And I mean, that really would be it. I think for me, the way I look at myself is throughout my career, and it's a cycle. I go back and forth sometimes because you always have to remind yourself the same mistake over and over again. And I think for me, especially being young, there's a level of ego that can keep coming back at you, and then you keep being humbled. And then you go through a year of being humble and doing the right thing, but then you go back into the ego, and you'll just see that cycle. And then people go through all the time. And I think for me, I had mentors when I started. And then you get success because those mentors show you what to do. And then the ego starts to take over. And then you're like, I don't really need much of a mentor anymore. I can figure this out on my own. And you go into the next venture and you lose. And then you're like, I got humbled. Maybe I should get a mentor. Then you get a mentor and then you fix it. And that's the cycle of life I think I've gone through. I think even to this day, I have to remind myself that I still make these mistakes probably every year and a half. I catch myself making the mistake. Even if I told myself, my younger self, my beginner self, I don't think I would fully listen. You know what I mean? You have to go through it to fully remember it.
Sure. And that is a really good lesson learned, right? The fact that you have to sometimes humble yourself and realize it's okay to ask for help when you need help and get a good mentor to help you out. It's the same thing in, I think, any business, right? You can't just, if you think you're going to do everything on your own, when you fail, you're going to fail hard. And when you're successful, yeah, that's great that you'll be very successful. But the other piece of that is you have no one to share that with. And that whole thing about having a team and teamwork, when you fail, you get to share the failure. It's not as brutal. So yeah, I think that's super important, man. Get a mentor, get a coach. I believe in coaches. I have coaches. I have mentors. I think it's a super important thing to just grow in life in general. Okay. So Caleb, the next question I have for you is, do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that might be wanting to start something like this today?
Yeah. So the first thing goes back to like just getting a mentor is so important. I think first, obviously do research on your own, but then once you get a broad idea of it and you understand how the business works, then you want to find a mentor. It doesn't even have to be me. There's so many gurus out there, whoever you vibe well with. That's what I always tell people. We've had it before where someone will get into a sales call with my team. They're like, what makes you better than competition? We're saying, look, at the end of the day, it's just who you vibe well with. We will tell people, if you don't vibe well with me compared to maybe a different teacher, I go with them. It's okay. And so I think you want to find who you vibe well with it, because you're more likely to listen to that person, right? You're more like, if you're like, I understand this guy, but then you watch someone else, you're like, I kind of do. Go for the guy that you really understand. You really like the guy. Go for that person. So that's the first one. You need a mentor for sure. And then the second thing is make sure you're in it with the long-term mindset. That is probably the biggest thing I can give a recommendation out of everything. As long as you have that mentality, you're good. A long-term mindset is, I won't even call it long-term. I would call it a do whatever it takes mindset. So it's you go into anything you go into, you have to go with it. I'll figure it out. It doesn't matter if I make a million mistakes. Eventually, that 1,000,001 mistake will finally be a success, right? And I think that's the process. And I've learned that throughout my life is that when I look back, anything that I went into and I was like, okay, there's obstacles in my way. There's things where I've quit. I was like, screw it. I'm gonna move on. And I left. But there's every single time I've been successful was when I got those obstacles. I was like, you know what? I keep quitting. I'm going to finally go through. And I got success. So if you really look at it, you're like, okay, as long as I just keep pushing through and I have a whatever it takes mindset, you'll be successful. Mr. Beast, for example, is the perfect example. I knew him when he had 800K subscribers. In calls with him every day, he would be with that mentality. You look at him today, he's the biggest YouTuber of all time. He does videos and spends $5-10 million a video. No other YouTuber thinks like that. And it's because he has a gambling mindset is what I call it. It's a do whatever I take mindset and do whatever it takes. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the mentality you have to be successful at anything.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. That's great advice. Definitely appreciate that. Okay, well, that is all of the tough questions. This last one is more of an opinionated based question, but do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related book or podcast or both? And I guess for you, keep it business related.
So one that I'm currently going through that has helped me a lot, it's more mindset. It can be applied for business though. Let me see what the title was. It's a long title. I think it's like The Code of an Extraordinary Mind. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm going to butcher it, but it's like Vishen Lakhiana. I can't pronounce it, but the Code of an Extraordinary Mind is probably really good. That I recently went over. And I think that one, if you think about it, if you go into anything, it's all mindset. So if you get the mindset part down, I think the business will come with it. And so this one really breaks down the mindset better than any other book I've listened to about mindset, even better than Think and Grow Rich, which I think is a really good one. So yeah, I think that one would be a good one.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I love that book too, Think and Grow Rich. That's awesome. I wrote that one down because I've not heard that recommendation before. So going to have to add that to the list.
Definitely have to listen to it. He talks about, he interviews Elon Musk, Richard Brunson, like all these guys.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I love mindset books because just like you said, I personally believe too that everything goes back to your mindset and how you carry yourself, how you think, how you act, how you speak, right? All that is super important. And it all goes back to your mindset up here. Usually that's the first thing, not usually, it is always the first thing somebody needs to change when they're changing their life to become more successful.
Yep.
100%. All right, Caleb, that is it for the final round. You survived. Great job. But now I do have one more question for you. And it is probably the most important question of all because people in my audience are listening right now and they're like, I might be interested in checking out YouTube automation or looking at this as another source of income to add to my repertoire here, right? To get another stream. So they want to know more about you and your services. So where can people find more information about you? Do you have a website you can share with us or social media profiles that people could follow?
Yeah, I mean, I always recommend just probably my Instagram because I love the DM aspect of it so I can text people. So if you just follow my Instagram at Caleb Boxx, just my name, 2 X's.
That's pretty simple. All right, at Caleb Boxx. Hey, I'll make sure I have that in the show notes to make it easier for everybody to just click away or copy and paste to find you. Just don't do it while you're driving, guys. Okay. And hey, Caleb, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to talk with me today, share what you do. I got some good notes here and it was very interesting. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. And hey, to my listeners, thank you so much for joining me and our special guest, Caleb Boxx, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's episode with Caleb. Aloha from Hawaii and have a great rest of your day. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Average Joe Finances podcast, your source for beating debt. saving money, and investing. Learn more at averagejoefinances.com.